how are you?
What's up, Yaman?
Good. What's on your radar today?
Well, the regrets of selling Tesla. That's on my radar.
Yeah. Well, maybe you should buy back.
Yeah, I'm thinking about that. Maybe with options. I don't know. I don't know yet. Maybe.
ACDC, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. What do you think about today's inflation numbers?
Pretty much in line. I think the market is, positive for the markets. They're still going to get a rate cut and worry about things down the line. If you look at the bond market, though, the bond market, the yields actually went up. So the bond market's not buying it.
Yeah. The yield actually went up. Let's see. I actually haven't realized that. Let me just check that real quick. Dow Jones flat. NASDAQ up 1.7%. S&P 500 up 1%. Russell 2000 up 0.8%. So this is driven by tech stocks rising. Tesla, Amazon, Nvidia, Google, Meta are leading. On the healthcare front, UnitedHealth is down 5%. This is a number of days now, which is kind of interesting, isn't it? That's a hell of a drop in I mean, when the guy was shot, the stock was about the same. I don't know if you realize that, but in the last, since he's been shot, the stock is down 13%.
Well, unbelievably, the stock was actually up, I think, as much as anywhere between 10 to 15 points the day that he was shot. And it was shocking to me, that, your CEO just got assassinated and the stock was up. And yeah, I think the market's kind of realizing it, and it's giving back a lot.
But why would the stock be up if it's not even the CEO, it's like the CEO of one of the subsidiaries, right?
No, I think this guy's the CEO of UnitedHealth.
Well, there's UnitedHealth and then UnitedHealth Group, I think. Right? Let's see, UNH stock, UnitedHealth Group. And the guy who died, let's see.
I think it's like
right.
I think it's a subsidiary, for state insurance purposes and stuff and all that. But this is the major component right there.
Yeah, exactly. But the company will continue as it is. So do you expect any fundamental changes in the company? PE ratio of 35, market cap of $500 billion. Let's see. In the last 1 year, the stock is flat. In the last 5 years, it has doubled. And, just like any other healthcare company. It's kind of unusual drop, I think.
Well, there's always uncertainty, right? I would expect it to drop a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
A CEO, just think about this, right? We're just into Tesla and how much weight we give Elon, right? Well, he may not be spearheading the company in the same way, but he's still responsible for the overall strategy for the company and everything. And there can be hiccups, right, along with it. And especially with something like this isn't like an accident. This is like the guy was assassinated. We don't yet know exactly what circumstances and everything, especially at that time we didn't know. So what else could be there, right? Could there be pending investigations, this, that? Like there's a lot of uncertainty. So I was just shocked to see the stock up that day. And I think it's natural for it to retract a little bit now.
I'm actually looking for long ideas. I need some long ideas to match the hedge the market risk in the portfolio. So this drop, I'm looking for drops like this basically. Luce.
So it's ACDC. So whenever a stock has a drop, I don't know why, but before that it always rally like 2 or 3%, and I see this very, very frequently. I don't know why actually. Do you know why?
Well, yeah, usually, and I think what you're saying is the other way around. it's like there's usually a rally, and then yes, the stock will always pull back, more so because of profit taking. But this was something completely separate, right? I mean, this was actually going up the day this event happened.
Okay. So if anybody can think of any long ideas, you're welcome to drop in the replies or YouTube live chat. Thanks to those of you who are liking the space on YouTube. And Noculus is number 5. And let me know what your code check number is. If you have a good long idea, so I can hedge the market risk in my portfolio, you're welcome to drop it in the YouTube live chat. Luce?
Have you seen Intel? What do you think about Intel?
So I don't know much about the company, but obviously they're competing against NVIDIA, and NVIDIA seems to be the more innovative company. And despite all the cash that the government is throwing Intel's way, they haven't really been successful. So the stock is down in the last 1 year, more than halved, down 55%, market cap of $84 billion. It's all the way back to 2011 prices. That's incredible. Dividend yield of 2.5%, no zero PE ratio. It's hard to get excited about a company that doesn't have earnings as a value investor. Lucia?
Well, you should get excited by the fact that Intel is an American company, and the fabs, to produce the chips, the fabs, the factories, takes 5 years, a lot of permissions from the government, a lot of investments, and the fact that it's basically trading basically at book value, so it's not totally correct.
Okay, gotcha. ACDC, what do you think?
Yeah, it could be a deep value play, really, but like you said, I don't even look at it if it doesn't have positive earnings.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I don't think it even qualifies as a value investing if it doesn't have earnings.
no, it doesn't. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just becomes a deep value speculative kind of a play that you want to hold on to, because I mean, think about it. They had all of this money thrown at them, and they still can't come up with anything. And I'm a huge believer, that the market, if it sees it, they start giving it some sort of credence. And this thing is that, I think you said 2011. Forget that. This is like a 20-year. I mean, you're going back to 2005, 2004 lows.
Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, I could look at it as a short idea, honestly, more than a long idea.
Well, you're digging for short ideas now.
I have too many shorts. I have no longs right now. I have too many shorts, a dozen stocks, and I need some long ideas to hedge the market risk. But it is what it is. I do have a macro slant, like macro expectations negative to the negative side, so it doesn't really bother me that much. But still, it's just good practice. Lucia?
So with Intel, to really
Maybe I should buy Uber on the long side. Lucia?
So with Intel, you should wait for the development of the Node 18A, which is the next gen CPUs they are developing, and which should come the first half of 2025, and should regain competitiveness and market share. So you don't have to wait long to see if they can come up with something. Other than that, they recently released some retail GPUs called Battle Mages, and they have an incredible price point, and they are very good for that price point. Like, they are very well executed. So they executed on something, at least.
Thank you. All right, ACDC. So you said inflation numbers as expected, but they're coming in at 0.3% month over month. Year over year, PCE is now about 2.93%. What would you do if you were the Fed chair next week?
I wouldn't be cutting rates into this. I mean, I don't see any need to cut rates right here. I mean, yeah. That's what I was saying yesterday. The Fed, that to me is the biggest quagmire here, right? Like what is going to be their role? How are they going to navigate through this market? I'm actually not as much worried, and in fact, I wanted to discuss this with you a little bit more. On my macro position, I'm actually starting to see a slightly lesser chance of a recession on the macro side. I think that could actually be pulled off. But what does the Fed do, right? Because they're kind of stuck here. If we don't see a recession, there's even more likelihood that we start seeing inflation go even higher. So do they reverse course here, and then do they go back up? It's the biggest dilemma.
Do they hike? I don't think so. I think there is some pressure on the economy already. I mean, we can look at the report. So the CPI report today, all items 2.7% year over year, 0.3 for month over month. These are seasonally adjusted numbers. Food ticked up to 0.4, which is interesting. Food away from home is also ticked up. Energy, 3.6%. Oil prices are coming down though, but that's, I guess, reflected. Gasoline down 8.5%, up 0.6 month over month. So I'm sure there's a lot of seasonal adjustment there on gasoline. Electricity up 2.8%, 3.1%. Utility up 1.8%. New vehicles up 0.6% in November. Used cars up 2.0 on the back of 2.7 last month. These are, again, seasonally adjusted numbers. So the used car market, I guess, is strengthening a little bit. So that's good for Tesla and other automakers. Apparel up 0.2, medical care down 0.1, medical services up 0.4 in November. Transportation services up 7.1 year over year. So you still have in these core inflation numbers, kind of like excluding shelter, you still have tremendous year over year pressures. But with oil prices being so low, I just don't see inflation becoming a huge problem in the coming months or the coming year. So I don't think they're going to hike rates, but I think that they might, pause next week. Right now, the CME Fed Watch is showing 95% of a cut, 5% of a pause. And this probably has varied from 2% to 8%, I think, today. So even the market isn't extremely certain, but yeah, TBD. I'm sure there will be some bets being made.
So I agree with you. I mean, like I said, I think this rate cut is already priced in. Okay. I'm talking about like if we don't see a recession or even a soft recession and we start building upwards more, what other choice do they have? Because there's a lot of things. I mean, low gas prices, I think, is a huge factor. Gas just for the first time in the last 3 years went below $3. Okay. And if you take into account also some of the policies that Trump is talking about in terms of lower taxes across consumers and also corporate tax, these are all growth factors here, that are going to spur up the economy here. So inflation, I think that's going to be a negative, which kind of leads to at least a pause, like you're saying, which means you're still somewhere around not extremely high rates, but still higher rates. And then among there, of course, the tariffs is an uncertainty that we don't know exactly how it's going to play out or not. So interesting.
Can you list the tailwinds for the growth again, please?
Low gas prices.
Okay.
And lower personal and corporate taxes. And the way I think they'll be able to pass these on will be through lower government spending.
Mm-hmm.
So I think these are, I think we're actually going to enter a time where people are going to still have this inflationary pressure, but they'll be more comfortable with it because, you know, personal growth, personal wages will start, you know, covering that.
Yeah. I think so. You expect government spending this next year is going to be lower than this year?
I think they start cutting some of the stuff right away. And yeah, I definitely do think that the government spending will be lower.
Okay, I'll make you a coffee bet on that. I think government spending next year will be higher than this year. Yeah.
Sure.
BGS the one. Let's see. I just typed this out.
I mean, are you sure? I mean, these guys are still not even done spending this year, so they're still going.
Yeah. All right. Government spending in 2025 higher than is lower than 2024 is what you're saying, and I'm saying no. So PGS. Lucia, go ahead.
So I will take the coffee bet as well, and also
Yes, one-on-one. Unless you find somebody to take my side.
okay. And also on Polymarket, you can see that the 25 base point cut is basically 94%. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. I pinned it at the top. ACDC. Do you agree with this wording?
I'm sorry. Wait, hold on one second. Okay. Yep. Sounds good.
Okay. Yeah, I think cutting government spending is going to prove more difficult than people realize, and it's going to take longer. Maybe eventually they'll be able to do it, but I don't expect it next year or in 2026.
So you think Elon can make robots walk and cars drive themselves, but he can't cut government spending?
Well, I think you have to be more specific in what you're saying, what Elon can do, because those things have already been done, right?
Right, but this is the same guy along with Vivek stepping into government, and we know how much fat there is. Okay, so they can definitely find. They've already said it. I mean, just by looking at it from the outside, how much stuff they can cut in there. You know, that, and then given all these other foreign aids bills that were passed, one after the other. You know, infrastructure, this, that, inflation. I will double my bet. It will be less.
Double coffee, double shot espresso. You know, the thing
Done.
is that, yeah, I think I don't think finding is going to be the problem. I think implementing is going to be the real problem.
I agree. You know, some of these politicians will definitely have some pushback, but kind of like what I said before, this is something that's going to be done, you know, in front of everybody, okay, in the public eye. And it's going to be hard for those politicians to stay, you know, speak up against it and reduce this. I mean, this is what everybody wants. You could take a survey. How many people actually want the government to spend more, or how many people want them to spend less?
Everybody wants lower taxes. Everybody wants lower government spending until you be more specific. You say, do you want to give up? Do you want to pay more taxes so we can lower it for the people who can't? I don't know anyone else other than Warren Buffett that says, increase my taxes. You say, you know, do you want to take away this, you know, Social Security or Medicare? Go ask people who are on Medicare if they want to, if they want lower Medicare help. They're going to say no. And there was a comedy sketch. I think it was the SNL or somebody. I'm not sure, but one of the influencers online. He brings in a bus full of Mexicans to a house, but they're waiting on the other side of the street. Okay. And they knock on the house. They say, "We're doing a survey. Do you support, open borders?" And the person says, "Yes, I support open borders. I support immigration, blah, blah, blah." Right. And then they bring in the bus. And all right, well, I guess maybe we can house these people in your house. And then she just fucking slams the door. And obviously, this is a joke. It's not representative of the actual debate, but it kind of catches the essence of the story here. Everybody is for these ideals until push comes to shove. That's where the implementation is going to be the difficult part, and we'll see if they can do it. I hope they can do it, right? But I think just like everything else, Elon has an optimism bias. He kind of like jumps on these things, and then and then he figures it out in the end. So maybe it won't be as wished and hoped in the near term. Maybe it'll take 4 or 5 years. Who knows? But I just don't think it's going to be 2025. Also, on top of that, this is the second point. I still think there's going to be a recession next year. So good luck lowering government spending in a fucking recession. So that's another reason.
They could save the recession by lowering government spending,
Oh my
by
gosh!
cutting
come
taxes,
on.
and by already seeing lower energy prices.
Okay. Well, energy prices are already very low. I mean, how much lower can they bring the energy prices, you think?
Gas back to $2 where it was. I mean, gas has been over $3 consistently. If you took a look at the inflation on just gas itself, from $2 to $3.50, $3.25, which it kind of like stayed around.
I think if you take out gas to 2 versus 3, you take out Permian production. So I don't think that's possible. But let me go to Jimmy the Elder. Jimmy?
Yeah, thank you very much. If you want me to talk specifically about gas and oil right now, I would say there is an explosion of something more important in America, which is nuclear power. I think that the deregulation, which will go on this term with Trump, is probably the biggest moment of nuclear energy in the next 30, 40 years. And I would hope that would make, it would kind of create an equilibrium around energy prices for EV owners. People don't realize that certain areas of America have extremely high energy costs. And one of the reasons why is there's basically black holes in our energy grid. A lot of it is because they're super far away from electricity generation. A lot of it is lost in the grid. But there are decommissioned nuclear power plants often in those areas. I believe firmly, from the analysis I've done, if we can build 12 new nuclear reactors over the next 20 years in America, especially in parts of America which have been depopulated, as like Amarillo, Texas, for example, we can reduce EV energy costs by 70% across the board. Yes, I understand. Drill, baby, drill. That's a huge one. Yeah, I have nothing against drill, baby, drill. But to do it in confluence with nuclear energy, it's amazing because the 3 big nuclear energy companies right now have technology far ahead of the average reactor built in the 1970s. Far smaller, far safer, and yet they don't have a single nuclear reactor in the process of construction as we speak. America is one of the very few G7 countries in that situation. The UAE has built 4 nuclear power plants in the last 7 years. Saudi Arabia is building 3. China is building 20. I think it's high time that we can do this. Yes, in conjunction with all the other stuff going on, and that will bring down EV costs.
ACDC and Alucha.
So I completely agree with that. And that is stuff that will happen in conjunction with it. This is, I mean, yes, you've got a very powerful oil lobby, but look at the other lobby that's become significantly powerful. It's the tech world here, okay? And these people are hungry for power. Their future depends on more power. So all of this stuff will be accelerated, and not just gas prices. just overall energy prices, specifically electricity prices. If you look at the report that you were just talking about, electricity prices have been going up significantly over the last 3 years because this administration has favored non-reliable sources and pushed them blindly with subsidies such as wind and solar. Okay. And yes, they have a place and they can fit into the picture, but you can't accelerate it fast enough to power the grid, the demand of the grid right now. So all of these things are going to help.
Luce?
If I could just mention something very quickly, Yaman.
No.
There's something that people forget.
Luce, go ahead.
So when Trump's talk, like he's in favor of nuclear power, but at the same time, he's not in a hurry to build new plants. So I don't see where you see this hurry in building plants.
Okay,
Like,
Jimmy?
People forget this. Department of Energy really, is and has been spending billions of dollars in subsidizing research for nuclear energy. In a sense, I want everyone to understand this. We are recouping our government spending by building nuclear. 3 major nuclear companies out there, like New Energy, they've gotten $1.7 billion in grants to build, but they never built. They've gotten it to research, and they've researched in conjunction with universities like University of Oregon, for example. We are simply recouping our tax money by actually allowing them to use their technology.
Okay. Jimmy, who do you think is going to win the bet at the top?
I don't want to get removed from the space again, so I'm going to say value analyst 1.
I mean, Jimmy, come on. Who do you think is going to win the bet at the top?
That's what I mean. I've been blocked for 7 months, and so I'm going to say value analyst 1.
Well, it's not because you disagree with me. Plenty of people, I think most people in the space right now disagree with me. That's not why. You just have to abide by the rules like everybody else. Let's read some YouTube comments here. On YouTube live chat, we have Brian Silver said, just check TSLA price action. Glad I didn't sell in October to finance our new Cybertruck. All right. Dan B says, last market top 2021, 2022 was a digital monkey. All right. Let's see. ACDC.
I was going to say, did you hear about Amazon's announcement on selling cars on Amazon?
Yeah, I don't think it's a material event. Jimmy, question for you. What do you think about the quantum computing news?
I think it's another example of tax money being recuperated. Okay, we are building quantum in competition with other countries which are building this, namely China. There's a strong military purpose. A lot of the money is being funneled through DARPA. Just type in DARPA quantum computing. Now, why are we doing this? For those who are not aware, the NSA seeks quantum computing so that it has a huge amount of data that it's very hard to store, very hard to analyze. They don't have enough compute for this. And rather than constantly spending money through DARPA to build better compute in the traditional way, they're seeking quantum computing. Now, when it comes to this recent breakthrough, I believe it. I mean, there are a lot of people who are saying it's not possible. I would say this. There are...
Okay, so you're telling me that this is still a 0 to 1 problem, correct?
For now, yeah.
Okay, we'll get back to it in AI amateurs. ACDC, the reason why I don't think Amazon selling vehicles is a big deal is because they're just an intermediary. Like they're not, holding the cars. They're not building an inventory of cars, and I don't think that's, I guess that improves legacy automakers' operations maybe just a little bit. But first of all, it's going to start very slowly. It's going to ramp over time. This has been in the works for more than a year. I remember talking about this a couple of years ago, actually. And what I'm really interested in talking about is Carvana. I was in the earlier space, and someone said, "Isn't this competition for Carvana?" I don't think so. I think, but Carvana is an interesting stock. Right now, it doesn't have any earnings. There's some affiliated companies. I guess Carvana was spun off from this one company that's a bit more larger, more horizontally integrated. or vertically integrated. And so I'm curious about any updated thoughts on Carvana. I'm trying to see if I want to build a bigger position in Carvana. Have you learned anything new? Have you seen anything new on that front? ACDC and then Jimmy.
I'm sorry, I haven't really. I actually just saw the inflation numbers in used car prices, and I think maybe that's something that's kind of helping them. But there's no way I can wrap my head around their valuation whatsoever.
Well, inflation in car prices would reduce demand for services for Carvana. It wouldn't increase it. I mean, they don't. I don't think they have a huge inventory they hold for a long period. I think they kind of just try to turn it over quickly, so they don't really get impacted to a great degree by inflation or deflation car prices, right? Directly, indirectly, inflation would reduce demand for their services.
Correct, but there's a reason why there's inflation in the used car prices. You know, people are buying used cars a lot, right? Driving up the prices. So that bodes well for them. So it basically just validates why they're probably doing well.
Jimmy?
I'm a big believer in Carvana, and let me explain quickly. For those who are not aware, it has showcased a 34% year-over-year increase in retail units sold. So it's surging. This has contributed to a 32% surge in revenue. Yeah, profit, not negative. Profit, basically none. But it is, I remember Mark Jenkins, who's the CFO, talking about how they're integrating more ASDA assets. For those who are not aware of ASDA, that is basically the American Auto Dealers Association. Okay. And so there's a lot of things that it has to figure out, like car registrations, for example, better efficiency for the quality of their stock. I accept all of that. But wholesale vehicle auction solutions for companies like ASDA, it's a big deal for Carvana to integrate that stuff with Carvana. It's going to be really important for that company because it's had a huge issue with the pipeline of getting better stock, right? Now, I want to add another point, and this is extremely important for Carvana. Where is its net income going to go by next year? You know, I think Q3 2024, 148 mil, operating income 337 mil, adjusted for EBITDA. But, you know, it's growing pretty quickly. I think it won't have to keep on going back to the debt markets. I think it's only 1% of the used car market, which is a $1 trillion market. If it can get to 5% of 1 trillion, I think that's going to be really good. I think it'll be cash flow positive, never have to go back to the debt markets again. And I think over time, we're going to start digitizing car registrations more easily. People have less issues with those problems that they had when they used to buy Carvana. It wasn't updated in time. It's a general trend, and I think Carvana is a part of that trend. So I'm bullish on Carvana. If you're bullish, be bullish on Carvana.
ACDC, any thoughts on what Jimmy said?
It's an interesting case with some of the numbers that he laid out. Like I said, I honestly, I have not looked at the numbers in detail, so that's why I can't give you my candid opinion on it. But in terms of current valuations, it just means that basically this thing has to operate on a similar growth rate in perfection for, I don't know, maybe the next 10 years, really. That's what it's valued at.
Yeah. Yeah, from 2024 to 2025, the revenue is expected to increase by 2.3 billion. So that's about a little less than 20% increase. And then the bottom line EPS is expected to increase close to 100%. There's a wide range of estimates there, from $1, 1.8 to $4.7 per share. Jimmy, why do you think Carvana will be able to grow profitably at a rapid rate? What gives them the advantage over other dealerships, do you think?
I think fundamentally it's better data about what stock to buy. That's the most important thing in the used car market. Reducing the stock of cars which people don't want and maintaining stock and increasing stock of cars that people want. It's one of the very few online e-commerce car platforms that are doing this well. Name me another. And it's fully online, which means its administrative costs are generally going down. If you look at its balance sheet, it's doing better over time. Now, people have claimed this. I think this is ACDC's problem, right? So if you look at the P ratio, it's currently 0. I totally get that. It might be 0 for quite a while, to be honest. But his claim is essentially GF value, the value of the, essentially the intrinsic value of the company with the book ratio. So if you take the total value of the assets, it's the intrinsic value of those assets and the stock price. If you're basically valuing the assets more, that's the, higher than the actual assets itself. Now, I would say people like ACDC would say, why would you expect to value a company with holding assets of cars at more than those cars are worth? Is the management and business viability in the future really pushing that intrinsic value upwards above its holdings? I would say yes. And it's about not just traction, as ACDC pointed to, but just acceptance that this is now the way that you buy cars in the future. There is so much acceptance for younger generations of Americans to go this route. Buying t-shirts online, buying shoes online was tough. Now it's accepted. Cars online is becoming accepted. Wait 20 years, it will be the only way to buy cars.
But you can't do the same thing on CarMax. So what's the difference?
Well, the thing about
It's not the same.
Yeah, it's not the same.
Hold on, let me just ask Jimmy, and then I'll get back to ACDC. Go ahead, Jimmy.
I firmly believe it's not the same.
Okay, what do you believe on firmly, loosely?
Well, I would say this. It's about the experience. It's about, CarMax, for example, it's got a lot of stock. It's a company that has to have these huge dealerships. It's a company that has to have people and taxes. It's a completely different business. It's not a fully digital e-commerce business.
Okay, ACDC, why do you think they're different?
It's entirely different. So I told you, I shared my experience. If the best example I could give you is CarMax is like going to a traditional car dealer to buy a car versus Carvana is like buying a car from Tesla. Okay. Everything that I did was all on my phone, uploading the title, your driver's license, everything. I only spent 5 minutes picking up the check, signing off the title, including the 2-3 minutes that the person took to test drive the car. Okay. So it's a very streamlined process. And I think kind of like what Jimmy said, they've incorporated, I think, a lot of tech in it because they give you a price like right away. They also have like, and if you don't take that offer right away, they'll trend that price for you. They'll tell you if it's going up, going down and everything. So their algos are much better than like you going into a dealer and the dealer goes like, okay, I'll be back. And he goes into the back office and comes with a piece of paper. He's like, how's this? They've really figured out the model to buy it from you at an attractive price. They gave me the highest price, including Tesla, the car dealership I got it from, and CarMax. And then they were able to turn it around in less than 10 days for about a 25% profit.
Jimmy?
Repeat buyers is the name of the game. When I'm referring to acceptance, data has shown 20% of Carvana's buyers are now repeat buyers. We have a little bit more data about this because it's been around for a while since COVID. People were worried that after COVID, people go back to CarMax, wouldn't go back to the phone, wouldn't continue shopping. People claimed that the 30-day window for returning the car was a bad idea. But what that does, it builds that loyalty. And they're doing that for a very, if you look at the operating margin, it's not hurting the company. But moreover, repeat buyers are increasing. So that means that people like ACDC I think he sounds like a repeat buyer. They spent a lot of money to acquire him. You know what I mean? Not you personally, but it's not like your property or something. I mean, your loyalty to the brand, and you'll probably be a repeat buyer again. And that's the most important thing.
I don't think so. I haven't heard anything that's very convincing so far.
Let's get Magic on the board. I think Magic knows a
Yeah.
little bit about Carvana.
Yeah. Magic?
Hey guys, how's it going?
Good. What do you know about Carvana?
It's another call option stock pump situation. The stock or the
Yeah,
company?
see, I don't know. I don't know if that's true. I don't know if this is driven by call options. I think it's a very different story than some of the meme stocks.
Yeah.
But on
I
the
mean,
other hand, I'm not seeing the the repeat customer argument that Jimmy just presented. He didn't present, for example, what that figure was a couple of years ago. How does that compare to industry average? He kind of just threw out a number. And then, when it comes to about ACDC going back as a repeat customer, like next time ACDC buys a car, he's not going to be just like going to Carvana.com and buying the first car. He's going to be searching around again, and everybody will. So I don't really see that either.
I don't see. Yeah, I don't see they don't really have a competitive advantage. They're selling a commodity product. Doesn't matter. People will copy them. Just because the stock's up doesn't mean it's going to change anything. I mean, there's a lot of state laws, so it depends on the lobbying based on dealerships. Car dealerships are a really big lobby, so to displace them is hard. Like, look at Tesla. They've tried to sell directly to customers, and it's pretty hard. So, I mean, I agree. I think online is more efficient, but there's a big lobby in the way that doesn't want people to buy directly from online websites. So it's gonna be a fight for the near future, I think.
And
But
Jimmy,
you're
the
forgetting
question.
another component, though,
Go ahead.
which is that now Elon is in government. And I think one of the things about Doge is it's going to be able to fight back against those lobbyists. I think he realizes there's inefficiencies right now in America that hurt Americans and cause inflation. Car dealerships and the dealership lobby is one of them. Dealership lobby spent overwhelmingly for the Democrat Party. And he is very much aware of that. It's one of the reasons why Carvana's price is pumping.
Okay. You guys want to talk some Tesla?
I would really like to talk a little bit, if you don't mind, about Cruise.
Go ahead.
Well, I find it fascinating that GM's giving up, owns 90% of it, and just said, we're not going to fund it anymore. It reminds me a little bit of a government agency just refusing to foot the bill anymore for one of its failed projects. It reminds me of eVTOL projects like Lilium that, the Bavarian government was refusing to foot more bills for it. And now Lilium's just trying to run around to find a new buyer for it. I think this is an important point in America. There are companies like GM that have, basically milked America for subsidies for years. And a lot of that money was misspent on things that it could never really do well in. I also know that GM has been on a spree to buy companies, startups like Cruise, and just given up on them. So my question to the panel is, will GM just realize it's not even a very important company anymore? And Doge and Elon, now that he's also in government, I think it was really important that when Elon went into government, GM realized this Cruise is not going to have this competitive advantage of lobbying the federal government like it used to. That the laws, it referred to in the recent report, the reason why they gave up on Cruise was more competition, referring mostly to Tesla. But Elon's in government, he's going to change the rules.
Hold on. So you listened to Cole?
Well, they wrote a report about why they're giving up on Cruise.
They didn't specify Tesla, right? They said
They
more
didn't,
competition.
but that's what they're referring to.
You're assuming.
You're assuming Elon's in government now. He can change the federal rules regarding this.
Come on. All right. So, Cruise was already gone, right? This is nothing new here. They want to focus on Super Cruise, I guess, which is what Ford did a few months ago, too. So it's not that surprising. What do you think about Waymo continuing to scale?
It won't scale.
Really? So you don't think Waymo is going to have thousands of robotaxis in a year?
I'm not high. I don't think they will. I think this is more fluff. I think this is the reason why Google buys these stupid companies, spins them
Well,
off.
then why did Google put another $5 billion into Waymo?
Google has a lot of startups they buy and spin off. They have a drone company that they spun off, and they're putting more money into that company. You know why? Because they want to look like they're helping America by employing people and funneling money into all these startups that are helping certain state governments, namely California, with more and more, and it goes nowhere. So they don't look like the monopoly that makes 95% of its revenue from an algorithm from the 1990s like they truly are. They're nothing.
Magic?
Yeah, I mean, look, dude, Google's an actual innovative company. They have the best engineers. Their product is scaling, and they have a product that's on the road right now. No matter what people say, they have a product that is operating right now. No matter how good your FSD is, you do not have a viable product. It is not there yet. No matter how close it is, it's not there yet. So you can hate all you want, but you have an imaginary, Tesla fans have an imaginary product, and Google has a real product.
Let me reply to that very quickly. When you
Okay.
have hundreds of billions of dollars in cash and you're expected to subsidize these companies, I think Tesla could do it too, but they don't have that money rolling around. They don't have billions of dollars of cash they can throw at these things for short-term solutions that make only their PR look good. They're looking for long-term solutions that mean FSD, fully autonomous taxis that make everything work in America, across America, in every single city. Okay? And you know what? If Waymo actually fails in the future, Google just gives up on it. If Tesla fails, the whole company crashes. So they can't just take that risk. They have to make sure it actually works. And I'm tired of the people who claim Google is innovative. Look at Google Search. Are you telling me Google Search is an innovative platform? Everyone knows half the links are sponsored and the other half of the links don't make any sense anymore. Anyone who's been in SEO knows that Google Search has destroyed thousands of American businesses, replacing them with AI-generated content. So you're telling me these thousands of Google engineers who are the smartest apparently in the world were not aware of that? Give me a break. Thank you.
Good to have you back, Jimmy.
Boy, Jimmy's coming in hot.
Mhm.
What I would like to say is,
6 years of oppressed thoughts in there, or 6 months, he said.
what I would like to add to it is that it did work for Google. So they are the dominant search engine still. And yes, by placing all those ads, that was their purpose. So this wasn't a mistake or this wasn't a fault. This was by design, and that's why it's such a profitable model as it is right now.
I want to ask ACDC a quick question. Do you enjoy using YouTube where your content is just two things sandwiched between an ad that runs for half the video?
So to the consumer, and I'll talk on my behalf, no, I don't. Okay. I think the only way YouTube is really palatable is if you have the premium version, and so is the search of it. But they have conquered the dominance, right? They're the dominant player in the field. And actually now they've just added Gemini into their search. So every search that I do with Google, it gives you the Gemini, and which is a lot better now because now I'm not seeing the sponsored content right up on top. I'm seeing actually the Gemini results and output, and it is very helpful. And then I can click on individual links from there to use it.
Magic.
Yeah, I mean, if Google hasn't innovated, why hasn't somebody come and taken that business? Because they haven't. So everybody's, if they wanted to, they can try, but Google's extremely dominant. I mean, they had to literally, they just got marked as a monopoly.
Man,
They had to spin off.
I honestly, I feel like I'm in a twilight zone right now because on outside this space, people are telling me Google is so innovative. They just solved quantum computing. Jimmy here is telling me that Google is not innovative. People are saying that Waymo has cars already, Tesla does not. it is one of the biggest companies in the world, Jimmy. You don't really get there without being innovative. They're also doing great things on TPU front too, right, Jimmy?
I don't deny that, but when we're referring to Google, we're referring to where most of its revenue comes from. We're referring to
Well, if you're
octopus
if you're
that
talking
is
about
suffocating
innovation,
American businesses.
if you're
It's
talking
hurting
about
other
innovation,
American innovation, though. You know what, guys? I think people fail to realize there's a whole wide world out there, people who are really upset with the Google search engine.
I
And their
understand,
business has
but
been, okay.
okay. Gemini 2.0, introducing Gemini 2.0. Let's talk about this for a second, because this really moved the betting markets. ChatGPT was seen as the dominant chatbot by the end of this year. But a few weeks before the end of the year, Google introduced Gemini 2.0, and now they have similar odds. Introduced Gemini to our new AI model for the agentic era. What do you think about that, Jimmy? Have you looked into it?
Yeah, I've used Gemini, so let's not pretend that I haven't used Claude, Gemini, Mistral, and ChatGPT. Okay? Most people are still using Claude and ChatGPT for a good reason. Okay? It reminds me, like in the Bible, trade the worn out ways of the past for a renewed mind and life clothed in goodness and truth. And all we need to do is realize Google spent a lot of money for something, a product like Gemini, which is in no way near as good as ChatGPT and Claude. Okay? And with companies like
Well, I guess
Perplexity
that's
right behind
like I agree with you on Gemini 1, but they're talking about Gemini
Gemini 2 as
2.0.
well, I've used it. I
You have
still
not used
think most people want Claude.
you have not used Gemini 2. That's bullshit. ACDC?
So, amen, Jimmy. But I don't know about ChatGPT. I don't really use it. But with Gemini 2.0, I can just have a fluent conversation with the model, and I'm not paying anything for it. And it's vastly improved from before.
Have you tried it, ACDC?
Gemini? Yes, I have.
2.0.
Yes.
How? Isn't that
What
what
do you
just
mean, how?
Mueller present testers right now?
Oh,
Isn't it
well,
public?
well, wait. I'm talking about the Gemini language model that's available. Maybe it's not 2.0 then.
No, it's not 2.0. Gemini 2.0 represents significant advancement over its predecessor, introducing several key enhancements. 1, multimodal capabilities. 2, agentic AI features. 3, enhanced efficiency and speed. 4, integration across Google products. 5, advanced reasoning abilities. Jimmy?
You can use Gemini 2.0 Flash Experimental right now. Go to gemini.google.com/app. You can use it. So anyone who claims that you can't use it, they're wrong. But again, the power of Claude, for example. I've been using Claude for a really long time. It's really good at helping developers build. It's really good at getting the code correct. It's a lot faster as well. It does have some hiccups. For example, you can't really use it all day. If you start using it all day, it limits you, and then you have to wait a certain number of hours. I accept that's a problem, but that's a problem of compute, okay? So there are so many arguments rolling around here that Google is so incredibly innovative. One way to look at innovation is to look at its R&D spend versus its revenue, and to see what revenue is really being driven by its new R&D spend. Truth is, Google has thrown away so many great products that they simply bought and then threw those products away and never really innovated on existing products like Google Colab. I say there's one bigger thing here. With Donald Trump coming into office, it's possible Google will start buying startups again. They haven't been able to for the last few years. There's a number of startups I see them targeting, and maybe they can come innovative again. For example, GitLab. A lot of people have been saying that GitLab is going to be bought by Google. Why? Microsoft has Git, right? Why not Google buy GitLab? GitHub, is it better? Yeah, it's better. It doesn't really have to make money, though. GitLab has been extremely profitable with all of the hamstrings that they have versus GitHub. If Google buys companies like GitLab, I could see a lot of synergies out there. But again, if you just look at the list of Google products, you're only referring to cherry-picked products. One is Gemini, which again, apparently AC/DC hasn't even tried Gemini 2.0. Again, you can try it right now. But what about all the products that Google had? It's just not really done anything with. And are you really calling that an extremely innovative company? I know Google does this, but Apple, for example, doesn't really do it. They sometimes drop products. That happens. For example, they dropped micro LEDs. That was something that they worked with the Austrian company with, and they simply canceled the contract. That sucks. Micro LEDs are really cool, better than OLEDs. Yeah, but for the most part, when Apple pursues a product, it makes it one of the best products it can. Name me an extremely innovative product, right? Like VR headsets or something amazing that Apple didn't buy or Google didn't buy. Because, for example, its most recent drone company, Google spun that off. Did it buy it? No. But then it spun it off. And now it's not doing anything. You don't hear about it in the news anymore. And yet most of those engineers came from Google back in the day. Waymo, a lot of them are ex-Google engineers. I would have expected they to do a lot more with all the funding that they get. I'm a little bit sick and tired of hearing how innovative Google is. Yes, quantum computing is cool. Yes, it's one of the exceptional cases of Google. But look down a list of their products and now tell me a few more products that are a few years old that have massively innovated and wowed you, blown your mind. If you say they're just the dominant player and essentially they're a monopoly player because people love their products, that is not the same as saying that they're innovative. Thank you.
All right. Do you own shares? So you don't own shares in Google, Jimmy, is that right? Do you own QQQ?
I am short Google, but
You
I
are
am
not
long
short. You
GitLabs.
are not short Google.
I am short. I am long GitLabs, though. I firmly believe Q1 GitLab's going to be bought by Google, and it makes a lot of sense. It's not going to be the only company. They're going to change the rules. They're going to allow for startups to be bought again. Probably Figma's going to be bought by Adobe. I don't know. But I could see a huge wave of MMA for the first quarter, maybe even the second quarter of 2025.
Okay. Well, there you go.
Does that make Google more innovative, though? Question to you.
No, I think you have really good points on Google, and you are right. You can try advanced Gemini 2.0 experiential model today. I was mistaken. I apologize for that.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Carvana's competitive advantages. Number one, online first model, convenience, 24/7 availability, vehicle vending machines, extensive inventory. Carvana offers access to a broad inventory of vehicles sourced by across the country, giving buyers more options than most local dealerships. Inspection and reconditioning, vertical integration. Carvana manages the entire car buying process, including inventory, financing, and delivery, which reduces reliance on third parties and enhances efficiency. Transport network, transparent pricing. CarMax also has home delivery and returns, doorstep delivery, 7-day money back guarantee, technology and data analytics, AI-driven insights, streamlined financing, strong brand recognition, and financing solutions, in-house financing, loan pre-approval, and economies of scale, growing market share, network effect. All right. ACDC.
Just had a quick question for Jimmy on his quick snapshot on why he's short Google.
Alphabet, yeah. Wait, what's the question?
Why are you short Google?
Okay, so it comes down to a few things. One thing I firmly believe in is an American competitiveness. But there's another side to it too, which is R&D spend. And if you start tracking R&D spend across its products, you start realizing a lot of it is being wasted. And one of the ways that you can short or long these huge companies is to realize if you can track the actual 10x impact R&D spend should have in a few years, you can track and project the new products they're going to have. They're going to be huge for its revenue stream. At some point, though, if you really believe in the AI narrative, that Google algorithm I was referring to from the 1990s, guys, the Google search algorithm, is not going to be the same competitive product for the end user, the consumer, the American consumer, most of the cases are, and they're going to switch over time to other things. Now, I think also with Elon being in government, they're probably going to change some regulations so that Google can't simply make sure that Apple and other companies on their phones have Google installed as default. This is something been going on for years. And I really think he's going to explain to Donald Trump this is stifling innovation, referring mostly to innovation from outside of Silicon Valley. There are a lot of great startups out there who can't even get their foot in the door because of this. And also, I want to mention something else. The Google Play Store fees. That is another case being reviewed as well. Can they really have these high fees that really destroy American businesses when there's just a handful of operating systems and you're forced to use Google Play Store? Those two things, the first, of course, being the default Google search on phones and the Google Play fees for new apps, which is what everyone uses because you have to use a smartphone, along in tandem with Apple. I don't think it's sustainable. And yet it's its primary revenue drivers. If you look at the last 5 years of R&D spend, and they have spent a lot on R&D. Before the Biden administration, it was a lot more if you're referring only to the MMA pipeline. I honestly believe Google, if I was in charge of it, I would just say this. We're not an innovative company anymore. We're a bank. Who says that? Peter Thiel says that. Peter Thiel made this argument that Google's primary drivers are old tech and its investments in the money market because of how much cash it has. I think they should admit that they're nothing more than a fintech with an old set of tech and push up dividends. They have all this cash that they're hoarding. You know, when you're a company, ACDC, imagine you're a company right now. You're an innovative American company with lots of Indians, a lot of Indian engineers who are expecting to build the future. They got these visas. You brought them from the slums of New Delhi, and now you're making them work for Mr. Pichai, okay? Now tell me, are they really working on their dreams? Are they really building that future? That cash hoard should be invested in the future. It should be invested in massive projects that can change everything. Under Sergey Brin, they had huge projects. I'll give you an example. Underwater data centers. That was a Sergey Brin idea. They even had floating data centers. Another Sergey Brin idea. I can tell you all the things Sergey Brin had, and he left. Now all those ideas are gone. And all that cash is still there. And you know what they should do? Use that fucking cash as dividends. Because you're not going to be doing anything with that cash.
I got the snapshot, Jimmy. But on one hand, you're saying that Google is stifling competition of all these small companies, right? And they're not going to let that happen anymore, okay? And on the other hand, you're saying that they're going to let Google buy GitLab in the first quarter.
Well, we have a free market. Elon is supporting the free market. They could have a massive MMA pipeline, which, by the way, if you look at the pipeline the last few years, it's been massively stifled. And now there's going to be this huge explosion of new MMA. But will that MMA actually lead to more innovation, or will it just lead to Google looking good? If it loses its revenue streams because of the AI narrative comes true, it will become nothing. It will become a shell. It'll become Cisco, IBM in 20 years. I don't
because
think
Google has no AI innovation, you're saying.
It has the same level of innovation as IBM had in the 90s.
It
has the same
created the transformers, which enabled all these in the last couple of years, all the advancements across the board.
It's such a lie, you know. That's such a lie, man. Goodfellow and other developers who are, you know, most amazing academics in American history and computer science. They joined Google, man. They joined Google that paid a lot of money, then left Google. They, of course, the patent stayed with Google. Of course. But they're not other companies.
So what? Why didn't they join?
It has the same level of LLM innovation in that regard as every other company in Silicon Valley.
Okay. I don't want to harp on Google too much. I don't want to talk about Google too much, honestly. But Jimmy, I do want to ask you about the economy. About a year or two ago, you mentioned you expect stagflation, and I was very skeptical of that. And I think the probability of that is still very low, but it's definitely increased in the last year, at least according to the data. We have inflation still at 3.0%, core PCE, and unemployment rate has increased over the last year. Where do you think the economy goes from here?
You know, I want to mention something. People may not accept this. When the government spends a lot of money and has a deficit, inflation goes up. If the government spends less money and doesn't have a deficit, inflation goes down. That's the real indicator of inflation. I don't want to hear any more of these Federal Reserve numbers. They're hiding the truth. Now, when it comes to stagflation and the economy, I am bullish on the economy, but I am also aware that as the economy grows, there might be a little bit more stagflation along the way. The question is this: can Donald Trump push his Republican Congress to reduce the deficit significantly enough that the threat of stagflation goes down? Because under my previous assumption, there'd be another Democrat term and the deficit would never go down. And I believed that the risk of stagflation would continue to go up. I was removed in that space for speaking the truth and was not allowed to explain my assumptions. But let me tell you my assumptions right now. Elon Musk and others who are coming into the government are going to reduce that deficit, guys. We're spending so much money. Even Janet Yellen a few days ago said the deficit is a problem. And that is the only leading indicator that you need for stagflation. Thank you.
But earlier you said that government spend will increase next year, right?
Well, that was last year before Donald Trump got elected, when I was not allowed to
No,
return anymore.
earlier in this space. Earlier today.
You got meatballs in your ear, what they call, Turkish meatballs. I never said that. I simply said the U.S. government has a spending problem. Can Donald Trump get the spending down? And honestly, I'm not sure if he can. I'm really not sure, because the deficit is so massive right now, $1 trillion. You know how much cutting you would have to do to get it down to 500 billion? It would be very hard.
Yeah, I think the current spending is way more than. So this is the kind of stuff that's like, where are you getting your information and your data?
Mhm.
Government deficit is about 2 trillion, right, today?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Interesting. Magic?
Does it matter though?
Yeah, it does.
All funny money anyway.
Magic?
Hey, so yeah, I think Jimmy was saying that we're going to cut all these programs. I mean, the some government spending is someone else's income. So if you cut spending, you cut someone's income. So it's not that easy. If you want the stock market to keep going up, the government has to keep spending. If we reduce spending substantially, the stock market goes down, GDP goes down. So it's you can't have both at the same time. You can't have this crazy landing where you're going to cut government spending and then the stock market. No, you're going to cut income. Once you stop spending, you cut GDP, you cut all that, and then the stock market follows. The big thing that's holding up the stock market is fiscal spending. Wars, spending on Inflation Reduction Act, all these spending is really what's propping up the economy.
I want to comment on that very quickly. We have a defense budget because there are significant threats against this country. And anyone who claims that the wars are leading us down this spiral of stagflation don't realize the defense budget is 10% of the budget, that most of the budget goes to welfare spending and administrative costs, that the interest on the debt is actually higher than the defense budget. I think you're showing the audience something which I find extremely deceitful. You're showing them an open curtain of apocalypse, but behind you is the end of the world, which you are covering with your back. The United States will continue to defend itself. We have plenty of enemies around the world who want to see our destruction, sir. And I say, anyone who believes we should cut our aircraft carriers down from 13 to 6 and think that it's going to have any effect on the deficit and it will actually make us safer in the long term is delusional. Sir, do you realize the defense budget is the only thing that keeps you sleeping at night safely? That our American soldiers, men and women, have received no pay increase in years, and they live in terrible conditions in their barracks, that American bases have really never had an upkeep increase? Do you realize that, sir? If anything, we need to spend more on our defense. Shame on you, sir.
Oh my God.
Thank you.
All right. Jimmy, what do you think about MicroStrategy and Bitcoin?
I think Michael Saylor is one of the geniuses of America. He's one of the great industrialists who figured out long before anyone else did that digital gold is better than anything else. I think it's like the Warren Buffett situation. You know, the intrinsic value of his assets underneath Berkshire Hathaway, his chocolates from Nestle and Kraft, and his potato chips, you know, they're worth a lot more when you have 6 people. Yeah, guys, Berkshire Hathaway is actually only 6 people running in a massive fund. When Geico needs to do some innovation and they hire one of their consultancy companies inside of Berkshire's portfolio, that increases the value. That's called synergies, guys. Synergies. And when you have Michael Saylor basically being a PR spokesman for Bitcoin and going around getting it approved in different countries for the ETF, getting inflows in, getting funding, raising money, you're seeing someone who's able to make miracles happen. This is a guy who had a stock that was basically nothing turn into actual gold on the stock market, allowing pension funds who can't buy Bitcoin to buy MicroStrategies instead. This is the best way for regular companies to get involved in the future of digital gold. Bitcoin is the only thing this country needs in the long term. Our country is going to blow up. Our country cannot afford in the next 100 years to put this tax on the youth more and more, who are expected to pay higher and higher tax for less and less services. Bitcoin is the only alternative. And that is why when you hear CNNBC or MSNBC talk about the American economy, then they say, but what's going on with Bitcoin? Because they know that no government official can fuck with Bitcoin. Bitcoin cannot be changed by anyone. Bitcoin is immutable. Bitcoin is the only thing that is perfect in our terrible world. The angels have Bitcoin. I swear to God, Yaman, I swear by Allah, if you go to heaven, if you want to buy Starbucks, you are expected to have a little bit of Bitcoin. I mean that, because Bitcoin is not just divine. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. God, my God. You said pension funds invested Bitcoin, or MicroStrategy allowed pension funds to invest in Bitcoin. Can you name a couple?
That are investing in Bitcoin right now through MicroStrategies. I mean, there are funds that are like the ARC blockchain thing. They have MicroStrategies, and companies do buy that stuff.
No, pension funds.
Well, pension funds buy mutual funds all the time, and inside the mutual funds, there'll be those things inside of it.
Okay, I see. So
pension funds really rarely buy individual stocks. They buy basically massive baskets. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So there's no support for pension funds investing in MicroStrategy. You're saying through mutual funds. Which mutual funds on MicroStrategy?
Mutual funds that buy MicroStrategies, there's plenty of mutual funds.
Can you name a few?
Of course, it's not a problem for me. For one, you know, there are so many that do this. Okay, guys, MicroStrategy is owned by ProShares Ultra, MSCI FinTech Innovation, Adaptive RH Tactical, Vanguard VS, Rare View Systematic Equity, Carvana Target Drawdowns, Adaptive RH Hedged, Goose Hollow Tactical Allocations. I mean, there are so many mutual funds that buy, and it's going to go up and up. Bitcoin. I want to speak to everyone directly in the audience right now. If you're worried about your financial future,
let me read the top mutual fund holders of MicroStrategy. Okay. We have Growth Fund of America owns 4.5%, Fundamental Investors 3.4%, Vanguard Total Stock Market Index, Vanguard Extended Market Index, Vanguard Small Cap Index Fund, Vanguard Mid Cap Index Fund, Vanguard Technology Index Fund, Vanguard Growth Index Fund. So most of these are index funds, and right. And you mentioned your first claim was MicroStrategy allowed pension funds to invest in Bitcoin, which is incorrect, to my knowledge.
Well, I'm just going to point out they're all ETFs.
Now, the index funds are mutual funds. Those are not ETFs.
I think pension funds love to buy ETFs.
Okay.
Now, let me just speak to the audience directly, if you don't mind.
Now, let me ask you this.
guys,
How do you think, can you name one or two ways that MicroStrategies, the downside to the MicroStrategies leverage play on Bitcoin?
there's no downside. Bitcoin always goes up in the long term. It is maximum unlimited upside with zero downside risk. And this is financial advice.
Okay. The Growth Fund of America. A flexible approach to growth investment seeks to opportunity traditional growth stocks as well as cyclical companies and turnaround situation with significant potential growth capital. Fund assets $306 billion. Asset mix 88% US equities.
Amazing.
Hold on. 300 plus company investments. So it's essentially it sounds like an index fund.
But
Portfolio
Yaman, let me give you some examples. BTCFX, type that in, BTCFX. That's a mutual fund.
Okay, I'll get to that in a second. Hold on. Let me just see a couple more about this fund. Let me just make sure this is an essentially index fund, and then we can move on.
CRPT.
Number one investment, Meta, 5.9%, Microsoft,
Yaman,
5.5%,
Yaman.
Alphabet, just one sec, 4, Amazon, 3.8, Nvidia, 3.7, Broadcom. Let me just pull up the correlation. ACDC, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. So the Growth Fund of America is not an index fund. It's an actively managed fund.
I know, but
Mutual fund.
if you have hundreds of securities, you're essentially an index fund.
It doesn't matter. Legally,
how are they
I'm
different
right.
from, if their top investments are Meta, Microsoft, Amazon, Broadcom, Nvidia, Apple, Tesla, Netflix, Google, how are they different from an index fund?
They
Slight
end up
differences.
in top heavy market.
What I'm trying to say is, if there's a fund that owns 20, 30 stocks with number one top of the world performance that selects MicroStrategy, that's a very different story than some fund with 300 plus billion assets, which you can't really manage effectively anyway, actively, that investing in several hundred securities, and MicroStrategy is one of those. It's not in the top 20.
Correct. So I followed this fund for 25 years. Okay.
Mhm.
And it's at times when the markets are so top heavy on the indexes, that's exactly what these funds actually start looking like, because it's those securities that have increased so much and risen to the
Right.
top, right?
Right, exactly.
And thus you're correct. They start almost working like an index fund
Right.
because of that, right? But I was actually surprised, and as you were talking about this, I was looking this up because this is actually a really good fund, okay, which has produced really good returns over the last 20, 30, 40 years, okay? So I was surprised when you said that it actually owns MicroStrategy.
Oh, 0.48%. That's it.
Yeah, it's a 0.48%, and I would bet you that this position was put in there
Right.
before any of this Bitcoin stuff and everything, and it was like a 0.05% holding, and which has just risen to this. These people
Right.
are not going to go buy MicroStrategy as per their fund charter.
Right, exactly. Annual management fees, 26 basis points. Other expenses, 11. Service, 12B1, 24 basis points. Expense ratio, 0.61. Liberal large growth funds average, 1.06. Yeah, exactly. That expense ratio is also in line with kind of like quasi index fund. Let me look at their performance record as well, real quick. Returns. Um, 3 stars, Morningstar ratings, 3, 5, 10 years. Yeah, so average. I mean, yeah, exactly. Sounds like there's struggling from the Warren Buffett problem here. 89% US.
That's because America is the only country that matters.
Okay.
I think we need to talk about Turkey.
Beta 104. R squared 92. Give me 1 second. Yeah. Okay. What do you want to talk about Turkey?
Well, I just want to talk about what happened in Syria.
Yeah.
So
ahead.
Turkey and Syria.
Yeah.
You know, what's going on right now in Syria is a huge opportunity for Tesla and Elon Musk. There is a recent announcement, even by the Ministry of Information, that Starlink is now covering all of Syria. That was one of the very first things they did, because telecommunication companies were owned by a guy called Mahir al-Assad, who was Bashir's uncle, who fled. So the telecommunications company is run by a person who is gone. So they basically had to disband it. Plus, it's a government-owned company. So the only real alternative was to give access to information freely by using Starlink. And so they were able to contact the Americans, and now Starlink is available in Syria. Will they get the Caesar sanctions ended so they can buy it, import it into the country easily is another question, but they'll just probably bring it in from Turkey. So this is the thing about Syria. It doesn't really produce that much oil, but it does produce quite a lot of natural gas. And I could see more natural gas exploration in the Eastern Mediterranean across from the Syrian territorial waters. This is going to be a huge boon for its economy. I think Syria, once it redevelops itself, will look a lot like Turkey. Turkey is seeing a huge boom for EVs right now, and that kind of consumer sentiment will be imported back into Syria. There's so many refugees in Europe and Turkey who've seen EVs on the road and want to drive them. And you know what? They have money now, and they're going to be driving Teslas in Syria. People laugh at me. Syria may be broken. Syria may be partially destroyed, but Syria will see millions of people who have made tons of money in Europe bring that money back, billions of dollars, spending money, EVs, Starlinks, everything. And I someday see Elon Musk visiting Damascus and maybe opening a factory there. Thank you.
Cool. Anything else? We're trying to keep these spaces to an hour now. We already passed by 23 minutes.
Could you follow me?
No. Nope.
Could I become a permanent regular speaker?
There are no permanent regular speakers. There's a high turnover in the speaker board. Let's see. Mike's coming up. Mike?
How you doing, Yaman?
Good. How are you?
Good. So I noticed that you posted your short Carvana.
Yes. Yeah, I remember us talking about dealerships in the past. What do you think?
So I completely agree with you. It's kind of ticking time bomb. It's the inventory of used cars, internal combustion cars on the balance sheets of these dealerships. So I'm short Lithia, which is the dealership with the most US dollar value of used car inventory currently on their balance sheet. They've got 6.1 billion in inventory, and not only that, but as you know, they hold a lot of the residual financings, the equity slices of securitizations on their balance sheet. So yeah, I'm going after the levered car dealerships, especially Lithia.
Lauren, thank you, Mike.
Yeah, I just wanted to come on and do a victory lap. About a month ago, I think it was back around when Luce started going short or selling his Tesla. your solicited predictions on what the future held for Tesla stock price. And my prediction was that that morning we'd seen the low and we were going to all-time high by Christmas. I think we did actually go a little lower a couple days later, but I'm feeling pretty good.
Good.
Also,
Congratulations,
love
ACDC.
Jimmy Otter. Good energy on here.
Just had a quick question for Mike. In the used car market, you know how like in the new car market, they actually have days of supply, you know, as a measurement. Is there a certain measurement in the used car market? And can you like speak to the last couple of months of like what you're seeing as a trend?
That's a great question. I was looking into that earlier. So Carvana doesn't have days of inventory. We can quickly figure it out just by taking the annualized last quarter, their number of units that they sold, and divided by the number, the dollar value, and then divide the dollar value by the average price. So you can kind of back into days of inventory for Carvana. So, you know, the big thing about guys like Carvana and Lithia, okay, so their strategies, Carvana in particular, is to build the largest marketplace, and by marketplace they mean largest inventory, digital inventory of cars, in order to kind of corner the market. That's their strategy. That's been their strategy from day one. They almost went bankrupt in 2022 because basically the inventory dropped dramatically in value as used car prices dropped from the summer of 22 to the spring of 23. So they're at it again. They're trying to build the largest inventory of used cars, most of which obviously is internal combustion cars. Lithia is a similar. They're looking at a similar strategy. They're trying to build the largest inventory of new cars. And yeah, you know, when this hits, as mainstream America kind of wakes up to what's happening, the progress with FSD, you know, I anticipate, given the leverage on these balance sheets, that the market will quickly determine that, you know, they're heading for insolvency, I think.
Jimmy?
What can I say to that? He just thinks they're going to go bankrupt as if they have too much debt. They can always raise more debt, though.
It's hard to raise debt on assets that are declining dramatically in value because no one wants internal combustion cars that don't drive themselves.
So Mike, you're basing your thesis on FSD having mass deployment, cybercabs basically taking away the share for self-driven cars versus any macro event. Is that correct?
Yeah, you know, generally, you know, what's going to happen is that celebrity with the big ass. What's her name?
Beyonce.
That was the other, like Kim Kardashian. You know, what's going to happen, I anticipate, is there's going to be this massive viral moment when, you know, when everyone except for people in this space and just a few others realize that FSD, it's on this rapid trajectory to getting to better than human performance. And when that happens, everyone incrementally making the decision to buy a car, they're going to demand an autonomous car. So I don't think it has anything to do with robotaxi. I think even if personal car ownership drops or doesn't drop, the incremental buyer of a car, they're going to want a car that drives autonomously, I think.
Jimmy?
Yeah, I don't disagree with you, sir. I don't disagree with you at all. But I believe that a number of people are still going to want ICE cars in America. It's going to take a while for everything to become EV overnight. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else? Anything else? If nothing else, we're going to end the space. Thank you very much, everybody. And let's go ahead. Let's go ahead. I mean, I really want to keep this to 1 hour from now. Thank you very much, and I'll chat with you all next time. Take care.
Follow me.